Hello, I'm Daria and I'm an archaeologist. In answer to your question, what does an archaeologist do? In general, archaeologists study the human past. Archaeologists look for evidence and clues left by people who lived long time ago. So archaeologists might excavate ancient tombs in Egypt, or they may dive down to the shipwrecks along the British coasts, or even they may investigate public toilets or sewage pipes in ancient Rome. They explore. But after these all adventures, archaeologists interprets his discoveries. So they spend long times and hours writing reports and getting all information from books or doing their research in the laboratories. And the third thing which archaeologists do, which I think is the most important, is protecting. Archaeologists is protecting our archaeological heritage, either from destruction caused by natural reasons or by humans.
Hello, my name is Richard Lewis. I'm an archaeologist here at the Glamorgan Gwent Archaeological Trust. Thank you very much for your questions. They've been great. The question I'm going to talk to you about today, or hopefully answer, is what you need to do to become an archaeologist. And there's several routes that you can take. You can do the normal route, which is to get good grades in school, do your A-levels and then go to university. And then from university, be lucky enough to get a job in archaeology. At university, you would need to study archaeology or ancient history, one of those types of degrees. And then when you leave university, you'd be able to start working for one of the many companies in the UK that do archaeology. There's also quite a wide range of jobs that you can do in archaeology. You don't have to be a digger like Time Team. You can work in the museum sector. You can work in curation, in conservation as well, so you can work with artefacts, and you can be a specialist as well, so you can specialise in things like Roman pottery or flints, things like that. The other way of getting into archaeology is also to get good grades in school, but then start an apprenticeship, and there are many companies now that are offering apprenticeships. And as a part of your apprenticeship, you'll go to college as well, and you'll still get that academic side of things, but you'll get a much more practical experience. Neither one is any better than the other, really. But once you get out into archaeology, it is very difficult to get a job, because currently there are only about 3,500 to 4,000 professional archaeologists in the whole of the UK. So there's not very many of us. There are more people working in things like museums than there are working in archaeology. And I make the distinction between the two because we tend to go out and dig up archaeology ahead of road schemes, or when a new Tesco's is being built somewhere. But you can also work, in museums or in conservation departments.
Hello, my name is Jan and I'm an archaeologist working for Glamorgan Gwent Archaeological Trust. I've been an archaeologist for about 5 years. When I first came to work for the Trust 3 years ago, I worked as a community archaeologist, working in schools and with members of the public. Now I work in the planning department, where I work with local councils, helping them to find out where people need to consider archaeology if they're having a planning application. For instance, if they're building a new house or building something like a new school.
Hi, my name's Sarah Jane. You asked what tools do we use as archaeologists. Well, we have to make sure we wear these high-vis vests so that everybody can see us, because we work around a lot of machines, and for the same reason we have to wear these hard hats so that the machines don't bang us and nothing falls on our heads. We also wear gloves as well, and our main tool is a trowel that we use to scrape away at the layers. We also use cameras a lot because we need to take pictures of what we find. We use tape measures a lot of the time as we make accurate drawings on site, such as this one.
Hi, my name's Chloe and I'm an archaeologist who works on Gower. I work for the National Trust. We're a large sort of charity with lots of land holdings across a lot of Gower. So what does an archaeologist do on Gower? Lots of things really. We do excavations, we do condition monitoring on the state of monuments, and we do lots of things with community groups and try and get people involved in helping us take care of the monuments that we have. So one of the things I might do typically is go and work with a group of volunteers, perhaps some retired people or younger school groups that might come out with us, and help them with things like bracken clearance and scrub clearance on some of the prehistoric monuments that are sort of all across the South Gower and North Gower coast and inland. Things like that. We go to meetings with partners at the council and other landowners to discuss how best we're going to look after the archaeology, and then we go out and we tell people about it and take them on walks, do talks, and do lots of fun things, and really just sort of enjoy experiencing the landscape and sort of helping people understand the sort of wide range of things that are on Gower from prehistory to sort of present day, and yeah, it's quite fun, really.
Hi, my name is Callie Rouse. I'm the Historic Environment Record Officer for Glamorgan Gwent Archaeological Trust. Now, when we find things out on site, they belong to the landowner and they get to have their pick of the most interesting finds. But the rest of them will come back to our offices, they'll be washed, they'll be marked, and they'll be boxed up, and they'll be sent to the museum archives. From there, the most interesting finds that are left can end up out on display in a museum for you to go and see.
What is the most abundant find that we have, the most common artefact that we find on sites? Well, that's quite an easy one. That would be post-medieval pottery. Things like Victorian pottery, Victorian pots and plates, things like that, clay pipes. We tend to find literally hundreds and thousands of them because it's a really common thing. The other thing that we find lots of is Coke cans, plastic, and old-fashioned Coke ring pools. We find quite a lot of those. If we the type of artefact that we find really depends on what kind of site that we're digging. So if we dig a Roman site, then we're going to get lots of Roman ceramics, and ceramics is pottery, because in the Roman period there was no plastic, and metal and glass wasn't used very often. So everybody would drink out of pottery bowls and pottery cups. Not too dissimilar to today, really, because everybody drinks a pottery cup and a pottery plate nowadays, so things haven't changed a great deal. If we're looking at a prehistoric site, well, the most abundant artefact we usually find there is flints. Nothing else really tends to survive very well, but flint tools, stone tools, do survive very well. And we've got a couple here to show you that we recently discovered at a community excavation we did at Carmarthen Park in Merthyr Tydfil. So this, if you can see it, and I'll hold it up to the camera, that there, I hold it up like that, that is a thumbnail scraper. And what somebody would have done with that is they would have used that like that, and they would have scraped all of the gunky stuff off of the back of animal hides to prepare animal hides to make clothes, things like that. They would have also used it to cut things as well. And the other find that we've got is a bit more special. This is the remains of, I don't know if you can see that. This is the remains of a Neolithic core, where they were taking flakes off of the core and they would have used the flakes for lots of things, to make knives, to make scrapers, and they would have used these like we use knives and forks today, and sharp knives. So when they're in the kitchen cooking, because well, in the tent cooking, they would have used these implements to do all the sorts of things that we do nowadays, but we use metal tools. But they would have used these. There's even evidence, not in this one, but there's even evidence of people using flint to carry out operations on people, drill holes in people's head. There's been some evidence of that as well. But also to make big, large axes as well. And in the Neolithic period, most of Britain was covered in forests. What they used the axes for was to cut down the forest to make way for agriculture, and that really sort of started happening from about 8,000 years ago.
Hi, my name's Sophie Lewis and I'm a project archaeologist working at the Glamorgan Gwent Archaeological Trust. To answer your question, where do we find the most finds? Personally, I found the most finds while excavating a Roman fort in Neath, and the fort was in use from around 75 AD onwards. Here we found over 10,000 sherds of Roman pottery, we found nearly 500 pieces of animal bone, and we found nearly 1,000 pieces of glass. And we found lots and lots more, such as iron, other types of metal work as well, and other different periods of pottery. But we also found some really small and intricate items, such as Roman dice and game counters and things like that. And those are the kinds of finds that really give us an idea, a sort of snapshot or a glimpse into what life was really like in the Roman forts.
The oldest thing I've found, it would probably have to be from the Neolithic period, the New Stone Age, and it would possibly be flints, lithics. I worked on what's known as a causeway enclosure, which is early Neolithic form of monumental construction at Iweni in the Vale of Glamorgan, and we had an awful lot of lithics, flints from there, lots of blades and cores and debitage, which is bits of flakes from when you're making the flint tools. But the nicest and oldest is possibly this lovely Neolithic hand axe from Whitford on the Gower Peninsula, and this is a greenstone hand axe dated to around 3500 BC, and it was just like all my Christmases and birthdays had come at once, and I found it lying on an exposed prehistoric land surface among some tree boles, the remains of some alder trees, and it's probably been there since it had been lost or deposited by its owners all those years ago.
Hi, my name's Sarah Jane. You might remember me from when I came into your school and did some finds washing with you from objects we'd found in the Gower when we were out field walking. You asked what was the last object I found. Well, the most recent things I've been doing is excavating a Roman site, so I'd have to say Roman ceramics. However, I thought I would show you some of the finds we had from the field walking that you possibly washed. This is one that is currently with a specialist, so I'll show you a picture. And this is a flint that's been worked into a blade that people used in prehistoric times instead of knives and to cut things with. Some of the other things that we found from the field walking project was some medieval tile, and finally another thing I thought I'd show you was some possible 17th century clay pipe stem, which is part of a pipe that people used to smoke out of.
So, you'd like to know if the artefacts that we find are ever complete, or are they always damaged or broken? I would say that possibly 99.9% of the time they are partial, damaged or broken, because that is the nature of archaeology. Archaeology is the study of people's past through material culture, through the things that they had or used. And most of these things have been thrown away, laid in the earth. Hundreds, if not thousands of years later, archaeologists come along and dig them up. However, on that very rare occasion, we do find complete items. One such item was a lovely, large, medieval jug I found from an excavation at Salubrious Place in Swansea. It was from a medieval well. We've been excavating down in this well, and halfway down the well, this lovely medieval jug came to light, and it was complete, and we were very excited, and we put it in the site hut, ready to take to the Swansea Museum or National Museum. However, on that occasion, we found that we couldn't get back into the site hut. We'd locked ourselves out, and the only way to open the site hut was for somebody to climb in through the open window. So it came down to me to climb in through the open window, and the jug was on the table. And as I climbed in, I unfortunately knocked the jug off the table and smashed it.
My personal favourite find was when I was excavating in Egypt. I was excavating a tomb, and as we went down the burial shaft, there was a small, tiny little chamber just to the side of it. And inside there, when we were excavating, I found a mummified finger.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jane. You asked if we ever found a dinosaur bone. Well, we don't go looking for dinosaur bones because as archaeologists we deal with things that humans have left behind. Dinosaur bones are studied by paleontologists.